So Manuel, if you sit in the middle. Good evening, almost evening, I'd say. My name is Steve Keenan from Travel Perspective. I'm the other half of Travel Perspective. You've had Mark all afternoon, now you've got me. To finish up, the last session of the day, thanks to the World Travel Market for having us back, and thanks to all of you for coming along this evening. It's been mentioned before, questions are welcomed. If you log on to slido.com, slido.com, you can log a question on there, which I'll be able to see on my phone. You can also, that's being live streamed as well, this session on Slido, and also on the WTM website. All sessions from this afternoon have been recorded, and you can look at wtmlondon.com to see anything you've missed this afternoon. So it's the last session of the day. We're talking about marketing strategies for 2022. You've heard a lot about what's happened within the industry, but I wanted to also bring in a couple of destinations today, find out what their thinking is for next year, as well as two specialist online travel companies. So I would like to welcome from the far end, Axel Heffer, the Chief Executive of Trivago. Next to him is Alan French, the Chief Executive of Thomas Cook. Manuel Butler, the UK Director of the Spanish National Tourist Office, and Gwennael Deos, or UKI Director, UK and Ireland Director of Atout France. Thank you, and welcome to you this afternoon. So Gwennael, can I start with you? What can we expect to see from France in its marketing strategy for next year to win back the tourism you've lost?
Thank you, Steve, and thank you for the invitation. Thank you to all of you for joining us tonight. Well, I'm very happy because I think tourism is back, and we can all be very satisfied about it. We had some interesting meetings today and yesterday, and it was all about product development, and everybody thinks that we'll have a great season next year. So France is back, and well, we've seen some major trends. We've seen that a key word is important now and is local. So this one, we can say that with the pandemic, the word is local. We should also maybe banish some globish view or I don't know how you say it, but for in the marketing, maybe be more have a more segmented approach. We should do not less, but maybe better.
Good. Well, just to mention a campaign that you launched this year, What Really Matters, hashtag, continuing into 2022. That's all 13 regions of France that are involved in that, isn't it? What's the thinking behind? Is this going back to local quality? What really matters in France? Tell me more about that.
Yeah,
campaign.
it was the very first time we had all the 13 regions involved in one campaign. It was quite an achievement for France to have every single region involved. We had the strong support of the French government in this campaign, and we have launched the campaign on different timings for every single country, depending on the pandemic, and we focused on sustainability, culture, which is one of our assets, and we have done some branding first, general branding, and then we have worked with tour operators and carriers in order to sell France.
Very good. We'll talk more about that in a bit. Manuel, looking at Spain, like France, you're investing heavily in tourism for next year, recovery funds. Can you tell us what specific areas that you're looking at in Spain?
we're investing specific on tourism for the coming 3 years, 3.4 billion euros, and that is everything linked with the sustainable developing and building back better tourism. That's based on sustainability and digitalization mainly, and we are touching the whole country. Yeah? And that tourism has to be a source of prosperity for the whole population and for the whole territory. That's the point. And the strategy that we are following here in the UK market is key in this policy because the UK market is the most advanced market worldwide. Yeah? What is happening here will happen later in other outbound markets. And we are developing a two-pillar strategy, I say very briefly. That's one is to rebuild tourism, restart tourism, working with the big players, working for example, we have our campaign, You Deserve Spain, Travel Safe. We will work on it, of course. And at the same time, we are working for the long term. Yeah? Strategy, we think that's the time to action for strategy, and we have fixed for a 3 years time to reposition in Spain in the mind of the British consumers as Spain as a sustainable destination. I can give you examples later or wherever you go.
But it's as Gwenai was saying as well, that this period has been a period where you can reflect on your strategies in previous years. And you were talking, Gwenai, I know, about reconnecting with the industry as well. So you feel quite positive the work that you've done in the last 2 years is going to benefit Spain in future.
Yeah, working with the shoulder to shoulder with the players, we think that's key. That's key for both pillars of the strategy. We can do alone this repositioning. We can do alone to plug in again tourism here in the UK. For us, is the most important market by far. We got in 2019 19 visitors from the UK, only from the UK. But we won't come back to 2019. We want to build the future. To build this better tourism. That's we are working very closely with. For example, I'll give you one example. Yeah, that will happen in 24 days, 22 days. We're working closely with Travel Weekly. Travel Weekly has called this Sustainability Summit, and we are the partnership, the premier partnership, preferred partnership for this tourist travel summit that I think is key, moving forward the agenda, the sustainability agenda of tourism.
I think there's a lot of talking going on at this time of year at conferences. Thomas Cook, very famous name, collapsed 2 years ago. 22,000 jobs gone. The name was bought, relaunched a year later, so you've had an interesting last 2 years, to say the least. Tell me a little about the process that's happened in that time and what your immediate plans are for next year as well.
Yeah, and so you're right, it's been a fairly turbulent 2 years. I think it's just over 2 years since the old Thomas Cook collapsed. It's a year since we relaunched, and then the last year has been a roller coaster ride. I think the good news is a year in, we're broadly covering our operating costs, which is, a source of some celebration both to us and our investors. So it's been, and I suppose the key learnings in the last year have really been that apart from if you've got a choice, don't launch a business in the middle of a pandemic. But I think the other parts to it are, you've got to take your customers on a journey, you've got to take the regulator on a journey, and you've got to take your partners on a journey. And I think what we did to do that, I think particularly working with the CAA on the trust model,
Yeah.
where we made sure that our customers' money was protected and we didn't get access to it until the customer returned from a holiday, was just a very elementary step to make sure that we dealt with the issues of the old Thomas Cook going bankrupt. And therefore, that allowed us to then start a conversation with partners on a fairly credible basis. Clearly, we needed to establish trading, but being able to establish that in the light of having protected customers' money was tremendously important. Our partner network actually responded well to that. We've had great support from the partner network, which brings us on to the third bit, which was the customer, and that's the thing that's really been hardest to judge. So in the year that we've been trading, we're almost completely at the behest of consumer confidence. When consumer confidence rises, actually our trading goes well. As consumer confidence wanes, it fades, and the UK government hasn't always bolstered consumer confidence with respect to travel as well as it could. So we've seen that move around. But as we sit here on the back of, I think, about 4 weeks since there were changes in travel directives from the UK government, that's given some the market's been a little bit quieter, and on the back of that lack of volatility, we're starting to see trading come back up again.
I think what you mentioned there is very interesting. There are two important planks for the future of the travel industry. Is one, that companies can't use customers' money as working capital. It's got to be secured until they return from travel. And also the awareness of, amongst travelers, of consumer protection now, insurance, and making sure that they're covered. These weren't always issues that happened in the past, but it's got to be good for the business.
I think so. I mean, I think it's an interesting thing to note that previously travelers may have thought about buying a hotel separately from a flight. Actually, they're now horribly aware of what happens if you do that. And therefore, the power behind the European Travel Directive and the regulation around it is something that consumers bear that in mind and understand why a package holiday comes with some benefits.
Yeah, so they can book with a bit more confidence in future, which is important. Okay, Axel, Trivago, 54 localized websites in 32 languages, provide accommodation, information, and links, but don't take bookings. You've been doing a lot of thinking in the last 2 years, as we discussed before the show. And where's that taking you to in 2022 with your product?
Yeah, I mean, the last 2 years have been quite interesting. I mean, even without starting a new business, basically we all restarted a business in a certain respect. And I mean, one of the key challenges that we faced in the last 2 summers was, I mean, in the spring, it was nobody wanted to travel at all. And in summer, a lot of people wanted to travel, but they all wanted to go to exactly the same place. Yeah? So they all wanted to go, relatively speaking, local, where it was very clear that they could come back, ideally driving distance, beach, mountains. So certain regions were completely overbooked in France and Germany, Netherlands, Austria, etc. And then other regions, I mean, certain parts of Spain, Italy, etc., were completely empty. And as a reaction to that, we've done 2 things that we will continue to do for 2022. I mean, one is that we developed a new product that gives you inspiration about driving distance destinations that you don't know already. Yeah? So because that's also something that we've seen. There are a few AAA locations that everybody has on his or her mind, but there are a lot of nice destinations that are not as well known. So that we do think is an opportunity going forward as well to, in a way, on a more abstract level, to redistribute tourists or distribute them more evenly to avoid over-tourism or just supply shortages, as we've seen in summer. The other thing is going in a similar direction. What we will see in 2022 as well is that there are certain destinations that will have an overcapacity, in particular those that have a lot of business travelers, where we don't think that they will come back at the same scale. And they will need to attract travelers. And there we've, for example, teamed up with the city of Venice to do joint campaigns to jointly actually promote the attractiveness of a certain destination in combination with a certain online service, where we we are actually destination agnostic, and as long as you're traveling and using our product, we don't really care. But in partnership, obviously, there is a lot of value that can be generated.
You bought weekend.com, and you're talking there about more domestic options to have as well. I think Google, I don't know if any of you saw that, had a slide up there showing a massive spike in staycation, searching for staycation in the short term, and they think that will last for a period of time. But that's clearly something you're banking on for the next 2 or 3 years. More options, more choice, local to home rather than long haul or afield.
Yeah, so I think what we will have to deal with, all of us, is that in the last 2 years, a lot of trust in safe traveling has been destroyed. I mean, some through a virus, some through erratic government activity. Yeah, so a lot of travel restrictions have been imposed, very short notice, with travelers having to travel back basically immediately. A lot of quarantine restrictions have been imposed and lifted very erratically, and a lot of people were stuck in certain destinations. And I think what all of these things have in common, that the traveler, as of today, cannot trust that no matter where he or she wants to go, that they can return safely and predictably. And obviously, the further you travel away from home, the less secure you are. And that is something that we all jointly need to work on, with the help of governments, obviously, as well, to rebuild that confidence that you can not only book a vacation, but you can go there and return without any hassle and any major consequences that were not clear at the time of the booking.
Manuel, I think you were talking earlier about the UK being a very mature market, and you were saying, well, Alan, you were saying that you thought that France and Spain have been very good at being transparent and getting information out to the UK public. That's not always been the case for some countries in Europe, explaining what the situation is abroad.
Yeah, but I think in case of Spain, we have to improve the information, the transparency and information about how to get to the destination. Then, as was pointed out by Alex and by you as well, that the problem is these erratic decisions about travel restrictions is in the mind of the consumers. They don't trust, and to regain this trust, we have to provide a very transparent information. Now the situation is completely different. It's my personal guess, and today is so, and I guess will be in the coming months as well. And in order to gain the trust, we have to be very transparent to provide information. That's something that we are on it for the coming months. More specific for the city destinations. I think with the big issue there, the city destinations, more than the holiday resorts, for transparency and regaining trust.
Gwenara, do you have any thoughts on that flow of information that's out there?
Well, I think there were a lot of informations at some point, on one side or on the other side, and it wasn't very coherent sometimes, It was quite difficult to find the information or to understand the information. It's much easier now.
Yeah.
It's nothing compared to what we had a year ago or even 3 months ago. We touched the ground during the last summer, with Amber Plus, which was nice for France, and a dedicated present.
I think you found as well that the visitors you had in the summer from the Benelux countries mainly were spending more than their equivalents 2 years ago.
And that's the first time, we've known some other crises, but this is the very first time that after a crisis, the yield is higher than it was before. So that's quite interesting, and that's quite positive for our industry.
Very promising.
Yeah.
Indeed, Alan, I know you talked about maybe some new product touring holidays possibly, but also you're quite confident that money will be spent next year.
Yeah, I mean, I think that assuming that we don't wind up with a reoccurrence of
course.
a pandemic, I think that, you know, all of the trends that we can see suggest that travel is going to rebound and rebound quite vigorously. I mean, a lot of people haven't been on holiday for 2 years, and not just been on holiday, but they haven't also been able to travel to see family, friends, loved ones. So, you know, I think it's quite, you know, it's not just about holidays. It's quite a big picture. People, I think, need to travel. The world's an international place.
Yeah.
I think the push for that to happen is kind of irresistible. We were talking earlier, looking at what we're seeing right now. You know, we're seeing trending numbers for October and November looking much better than, you know, relative to the summer than we've ever seen before. So I think people just want to get away, visit family, visit friends, celebrate things, as well as get away on holidays. I think there is going to be a push that's going to be difficult to resist.
What's it going to be? Big villas in Turkey or Spain? Is that what's the interest?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting to note that people are going back to the places they know well. So, you know, there was a move to people going to more far-flung places. I think that's kind of hard to do because the travel restrictions are difficult, and as Axel says, the further away you get from home, the less predictable it feels. So people are going back to some of the stalwarts of the travel industry, and you can see that coming through in Spain, in Portugal, for us in Greece and Turkey, which are our big markets. I mean, obviously the UK into France as well.
Axel, you mentioned more remote working abroad. That, again, is something that featured on Google. The presentation today was done by a Google chap in Lebanon. So what? Is that a very small part of the market, but it's something that's interesting to look out for in the future?
It depends on where you're based, to be honest. Yeah? So the industry structure is quite different country by country, and you're talking about a certain part of the white-collar market that is fully flexible and only a certain demographic in there. Yeah? So if you're with children, obviously it is very difficult. Yeah? So you have to be young enough or old enough, and you have to work in a company that has moved to either fully remote or quite flexible hybrid setup and is staying in that setup. So I do think that in the US it's obviously a very big market, so there it's very sizable. But that there is a niche that is opening up and that will stay. Whether it will be a very large niche, I'm a bit more skeptical looking at the European industry structure.
Okay, just a question for you, Axel, again. It's come in from on Slido. How does your partnership with Chelsea FC play a part in your marketing mix? It is quite interesting. You must have paid an awful lot of money to have your name on the Chelsea kit.
So we announced the deal in May, and then a week later won the Premier League. Not we, but I wouldn't have won it, but the club won it. So far it's going very well. I think it's other than that the club is successful. I think what is very interesting about it is that we are basically the sponsor of the training kit. Yeah? So we are visible as a main partner other than the 90 minutes of the match. And that is for an online company obviously very interesting because the world is turning more and more to social media. And on social media, you are basically following your favorite club 24/7. And other than the 90 minutes that are obviously on TV, we get a lot of visibility there and a lot of also flexibility how to engage and interact with the club itself and also with its global supporter base. So I do think that the split of the main jersey and the training kit will, which is very common in the UK, will basically be the standard pretty much across Europe in a few years from now. But
Interesting. Good
for us it's
visibility.
very interesting.
Very good visibility.
Yeah.
Now, short term, we're talking return ready to the travel industry of an old favourite, the duty-free shopping market.
Yeah.
Exciting.
That's
we can all go back and pick up our
positive
cheap...
outcome of Brexit.
So tell me about that, shopping Paris, short-term objectives. Tell me about that old market.
Yeah, it's quite important and to promote shopping with culture and with the duty-free shopping in in the cities, and that's an important strategy as well to help rebuild tourism and traffic to the big cities that have suffered a lot.
I think it'll do very well to get a taster for France again, isn't it?
Yeah.
And come back with a crate of wine.
And then you have the ski.
And the ski market.
Who's going to ski? You'd love to.
I'd love to.
And we had this great announcement from the Compagnie des Alpes with those charter trains with Eurostar to the Alps.
Fantastic.
So that was fantastic, yeah.
Okay, well, Spain. I think you mentioned the summit there with Travel Weekly. You had a big campaign with British Airways Holidays. Is that correct?
Yes, we are conducting a campaign with British Airways Holidays and with other 4 big players that in this year, 2021, as it was a one-off situation, of course, because the COVID, and we are oriented. Our campaign is more specific with British Airways Holidays next year, addressing the problem that we can have and to promote the city breaks. They are lagging behind with the recovery than the holiday resorts, the traditional holiday resorts on the coast, on the beaches.
Okay. In the marketing mix, video is clearly playing a very important part these days, and Thomas Cook, that's really what you're basing your app on, isn't it? The use of short videos to show the person what they can get. Again, TikTok was interesting on that market, and being able to book immediately having seen the video. Tell me more about that strategy that you've got for Thomas Cook.
You know, I think one of the things that's happening is that it's an opportunity to bring a holiday to life. And I think one of the challenges that the travel industry has always suffered from, particularly digitally, is how do you bring something as exciting as a holiday to life on an increasingly smaller and smaller screen. Video format gives us the ability to do that. And so if you've had a look at our app, you can, we've got a bunch of influencers who've been out there and looked at a number of destinations, created content. We've had content in from the tourist boards. We're now getting content in from users. And the idea is that you can share that content with whomever you like, a small group of people, if that's what you want, or a wider group of people, or even everybody, if that's what you're after. And then we'll use that to try and inspire other people. And as you say, we can then just click on it. So it's something to, I think, especially, as what we're seeing in terms of travelers at the moment is a slightly younger group of people traveling, slightly more affluent group of people, slightly more educated group of people, funnily enough. So these are the guys who are first out of the blocks. And again, those are a group of people very au fait with using video format and taking videos. Yeah. And it's also helpful to note that in our research, we found that people under the age of 30 were quite happy to share videos. People over the age of 30 were less happy to share them, but were quite happy to watch people under the age of 30 on the videos. So, we're covering all our bases.
Very good, thank you. Axel, you mentioned Chelsea there. A broader set of communication channels, basically. Visibility, get your name out there as well. And another deal that you've done is with TUI. You've linked into their attractions, experiences type market. Is that just another set of tools to play with, something else to book, or is video part of that play as well?
Yeah, no, it's not. The motivation is a bit different. There are basically 2 applications that we have in mind. One is the local travel product that I mentioned. I mean, there obviously it's not only that you want to understand the history, etc., or the points of interest in a certain destinations, but also whether there are activities or events that are going on, and for those activities we are using TUI Musement as a partner. The other one is that in terms of interacting with our customers, people don't travel that often during the year. Most people travel once or twice a year on average. And that's obviously when we are providing our service to save money on the accommodation. And by being able to provide activities in destination, we've got a second touch point and a second opportunity to interact with our users which is from a user retention strategically much more important than the revenue opportunity as such.
Okay, very good. It's been touched upon today, not surprisingly, the sustainability. Manuel was talking about this. The longer term, you've got to make tourism sustainable, quality, not quantity. That's clearly something that France is working towards, a sustainable France theme.
Yeah.
Can you expand on that, how you see that developing over the next, I don't mean by 2030 or 70 in India's case, but over the next 2 or 3 years, how do you see that sustainable theme growing in France?
Yeah, I think you need to work on the product and the offer, and then you need to make sure you attract the right investments in France, and then that you improve the product. So what we do, for example, is that we will implement new criteria within the hotel classification in order to get a better sustainable hotel industry.
Yeah.
Help grow the sustainable criteria within the industry. That's one of the things. And then we of course promote slow tourism, train, transportation, if possible, and then
the rail network.
Local food. And,
I think rail holidays are making a strong comeback across the board.
Yeah.
A lot of reintroduction of night trains across Europe as well.
I think
that's fantastic for
it's
you.
better to talk about sustainable development instead of tourism development, because sustainability is not only about the way of traveling or decarbonization, or it's about maintaining the patrimony, the architecture, source local product, maintain the local gastronomy, the art de vivre. Yeah. Everything is linked. And it's not about just saying we want to be a sustainable destination. We all want.
I do like a good train ride as well. Spain, Manuel, yesterday, World Travel Market, Palma said it's going to roll out an app to all tourists that will show where the hotspots, if you like, are in Palma itself, volumes of tourists, and they can be directed elsewhere. We're also looking to cut the number of cruise ships in Palma down to perhaps 1 a day instead of 6. Lots of examples going on in Spain, Manuel, but Valencia, can you tell me a bit more about what they're aiming for in the short term?
Yeah, we have to gather the experience, the development in Spain in terms of sustainability, and to bring here to the UK market on the stage. We have, for example, and I think that's the big issue. Yeah, not only for Spain, is a main problem for worldwide. Yeah, I will say. You mentioned Palma de Mallorca. Over-tourism is an issue. Over-tourism is there. We have to face this issue, and over-tourism, that's the negative phase of tourism, and could kill tourism. Tourism today is back. Yeah. It's not only France, Spain. I think I will say tourism is back. Yeah,
tourism is back.
Tourism is back, and I think it's a very good news. But we have to be very aware what will happen, what we live in 2019. 2019 was there were big problems around tourism in some destinations, not only in Palma de Mallorca, and we don't forget that tourism is built on social relationships, and the social sustainability. That's the issue of the over-tourism. I think that's the issue we have to address. And in this sense, the UK is one of the, not saying that perhaps it's the only, but it's one of the most advanced countries doing research and doing actions about social responsibility. And I think that's a point that we have to bring, not only Spain, I think the whole sector.
Okay, and an interesting plan you have with Thomas Cook is to make clear the environmental impact of each holiday or break that people are booking. Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Yeah, we're hearing a lot from consumers and within our organization that we want to give customers choices and make them understand, and they want to be able to understand the environmental impact of holidays. So we want to be able to expose that to them as one of the functions that they can choose from, so they can understand what the environmental impact is in a real sense. I mean, that is one of the challenges, just trying to make sense of it. But that's a real ambition for us this year. The other thing is, as we start to develop curated holidays and holidays that we're recommending to customers, making sure that we make clear what the environmental impact of that is as part of that exercise. And then actually, I think it's also interesting to note one of the things that we do want to do is to start to give people options that don't just involve flying. I think at the moment, the default option that the UK traveller has is to immediately get onto a plane. But there are options now developing where you can use trains, you can even travel to more local destinations by car. So those are all options that we want to sort of bring to life and start to put that within the context of what's the environmental impact.
So will it actually be, if you book this, it equals 34 tons, or will it be that simplistic?
We'll try and make it really simple. The problem is that it isn't actually that simple behind it.
No.
So one of the challenges that you've got is how do you communicate that in a way that's understandable and yet accurate.
It will be very interesting to see how that works. Axel, final word with you, because we're a bit over time. Sustainability, clearly, it's here. How can Trivago greenwash itself? So you're trying to get away with something.
So it is actually a very interesting question, because we are not involved in transportation, which is the main driver of the CO2 footprint, and we are agnostic to the destination you travel to. It's your choice. And I think we also have to be, as an industry, a bit careful not to say, okay, the less carbon, the better, because that's not the only problem that the world is facing. And what are actually the benefits of traveling, also traveling far away? I mean, there are a lot of regions and a lot of countries that depend on tourists to contribute to the local development very, very significantly. So if you would cut that off, that would create huge problems. And we've seen it in the pandemic. And the other thing, perhaps more from a society perspective, we are facing in many, many Western countries a problem where I do believe that traveling is actually helping by being more open-minded, experiencing more cultures, and becoming a bit more liberal. So to me, it's all about the right balance, but for sure, if you travel, you should make sure that your mean of transportation is as optimal as possible in terms of carbon footprint. But yeah, I don't have the answer. I think it's much more complicated than saying less is better.
We'll come back next year and discuss that further. Time is out. Thank you very much indeed for sticking with us. As a quick skate over strategy and philosophy for next year. It's going to evolve hugely, but I think this has been a really interesting 2 years to see how we move forward. I'd like you to put your hands together, please, for Axel, Manuel, and Guanai. And just to reiterate that all these sessions are being recorded this afternoon, are available on wtmlondon.com. Enjoy the rest of the show. Thank you.